Welcome, one and all. I can honestly say I've been living in the boat all week. So, welcome. Get into the boat, people. We're going to get into the boat today. A lot of people like to play games, so consider this service today a little bit of a game. Some people take great enjoyment seriously enough that they enter into TV game shows as contestants, with some earning, I've read, millions of dollars. Huge amounts of money. A lot of people like to watch TV game shows, which is why game shows are so popular. My research revealed that at one point the top program was The Price is Right. Was that Bob Barker? I can't remember. Yeah, The Price is Right, which began in 1972, followed by The Wheel of Fortune, started in 1975. People like to play games, and people have watched others playing games for as long as there have been people on this earth. Think about this for a moment. What do you think is the number one most played game in the history of humankind? I was noting on Facebook that the Raptors basketball team, the Canadian Raptors basketball team, had an unprecedented winning season in the NBA. One person commented that they were excitedly waiting for the Raptors to win the NBA Finals big time. That person planned to be a part of the big celebration party. Lots of people are known to dance little jigs when they or their team wins. Have you ever considered what party has been thrown the most often, pretty much everywhere and anywhere in the world? Have you ever given that any thought? While you ruminate on those two questions, what's the most played game in the history of mankind, and what's the most often thrown party in the world, I ask you a third question. Why do bad, awful things happen to good and often righteous people? Now there's a question that's been asked. They would probably break all records. Some people firmly believe that God causes bad things to happen just because He can, specifically as punishment to the individual, to make people to learn to depend on Him. It is often said God takes infants and children and good people home to heaven because He needs them up there more than we need them down here. How many have heard that? I started hearing that as a child. I never did get the hang of that one. Some do not believe God is real, but in spite of all that, it's God's fault when bad things happen. He's not real, but it's His fault when bad things happen. Some believe God is real, but is totally disconnected from us down here. To Him, we are just pieces to play with in some huge, sadistic, cosmic game. Then there are those who believe if God is who it is that He is said He is, then it must be all a huge lie, because obviously He can't or won't help us or prevent dreadful things from happening. Now, there's a whole bucket full of stuff to have to, well, no, you don't have to consider it, because there's a whole basket full of rotten ideas. We cannot come close to covering all the aspects of these questions today, but let's establish a few basic facts. We will consider just now the first 5 words only of Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. Is the first verse? First 5 words only. In the beginning, God created. We read in 1 John, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through Him all things were made. Without Him nothing was made that has been made. Now those verses take us to a big can of worms to open. Since all things were made by God, you know any ideas what I'm going to say next? Since all things were made by God in the beginning, that means God created Satan. And therefore God created evil because Satan is evil, right? How could and why would a holy, blameless God create evil? I believe God created the angels, and yes, Satan was called Lucifer, and he was an angel in heaven. In fact, he was one of the head angels in heaven. We find in Isaiah 13, in reference to Satan, and I quote, "How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning! How you are cut down to the ground, you who weaken the nations. For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will also sit on the mount of the congregation, on the farthest sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet you shall be brought down to Sheol, to the lowest depths of the pit." In the simplest terms, God, creator of heaven and earth, did not create evil. Lucifer, known also as Satan, had been of a high rank within the angels of heaven, each of whom were given the freedom of choice to follow God or to not follow God. Satan chose to rise up in pride and arrogance, and ultimately he and one-third of the angels of heaven who chose to follow him were thrown out of heaven down to the earth, where Satan still reigns to this day. We see in Job chapter 1, verses 6 and 7, one day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, from roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth in it. Now God knew exactly. That's the end of those verses. God knew exactly what Satan was doing. He wasn't asking Satan, what have you been doing, buddy? Because he didn't know. God was giving Satan the opportunity to state his activity. Let's clarify. Satan is not all-knowing, meaning he's not omniscient as God is. Satan is not all-powerful, meaning that he is not omnipotent as God is. Nor is Satan present everywhere, meaning that he's not omnipresent as God is. So we've established that Satan is not omniscient as God is, all-knowing. He's not as omnipotent, as powerful as God is. Nor is he as omnipresent everywhere as God is. Satan is a created being with major limitations. Satan wields his power on the earth with the help of angels who fell with him from heaven. He and they have a lot of power, but they're not God. But they are not God. They use lies and fear and intimidation to gain control over people. Satan lied to Adam and Eve, convincing them that God wanted to keep something good from them, the knowledge of good and evil. It didn't take long for Eve to believe that, hey, God is keeping something good from us. And she ate the fruit from the tree of knowledge. And then so did Adam. That's when the number one game of all time began. The blame game. Have you heard it? You've heard of the blame game? Eve blamed Satan. Adam blamed Eve. When bad things happen or things don't go right, it's always come as a result of somebody else's fault. People even blame God as if God purposely orchestrates evil for some sadistic pleasure. Insurance companies, get this people, insurance companies often label some causes of damage and catastrophe to be acts of God. Acts of God, as if God sits up in heaven and decides, hey, today I'm going to cause a tornado to touch down and wipe out that trailer park. Or I think a volcano should shake those people up and get them calling out to me. Let's face it, a lot of bad things happen to a lot of people because of some stupid choices, such as choosing to live in a trailer park that was set up in an area known as Tornado Alley. Or building your house on the side of a mountain that is known to be a volcanic mountain. Or on a floodplain. Years ago, we lived in an area out in the Manitoba area that we found out after we moved in. We found out it was on a floodplain. They actually built a building, gave building permits, and there we all were living in a floodplain. Thankfully, we never lost anything, but my husband spent one winter out there on a floodplain crew, saving people from the floods that did come. Or some people choose not to get their brakes fixed on their car. So, what party would most commonly be thrown just about everywhere in the world after a round of the blame game? The answer is the self-pity party. The self-pity party. The, oh, woe is me. It's not fair. Why did this happen to me? I didn't deserve this. That kind of party. You probably have heard somebody or witnessed somebody having a self-pity party. Maybe you have unfortunately gone through it yourself once or twice. We will not dwell on the details for how a self-pity party plays out, as most of us are all too familiar with our own versions of it. And I certainly do not wish to give you new ideas on how to set yourself up a self-pity party. Which brings us to the answer for the third question. Why do bad things happen to good and even righteous people? Remember when Satan was walking about on the earth and he told God he was roaming back and forth? The Living Bible says Satan was patrolling the earth. God and Satan got to talking about a man named Job. Satan said Job only worshipped and honored God because God gave him lots of good things, and that if those blessings were taken away, Job would curse God. God gave Satan permission to do bad things to Job, knowing that Job would remain true and faithful. Job's wife and friends played the blame game, blaming Job for some sin. He has to have done something. He sinned to have caused the calamities and losses. So then they all got to blaming God. That's different for Job. Job did not blame God. In the third chapter, Job threw himself a big self-pity party, but he never cursed God as his wife advised him to do. In time, God more than restored all that had been taken from Job. I discovered that all kinds of books and articles have been written on this question. Why do bad things happen to good people? And many a sermon preached on that topic. I also discovered the answers are as varied as those giving them. I contend, as do many, that bad things happen because the world is the current habitat of Satan and his followers, both demons and humans. There are humans who follow Satan as well. And they're out there doing Satan's work of making life miserable. They're not in the habit of playing fair, being nice, being honest, nor promoting thoughts that are lovely honest, and of good report. They want people to be in a state of fear and distrust and even complacency. I came across an explanation I found to be intriguing. Satan was given temporary dominion over the planet we live on, over this place we call Earth. He is allowed to do whatever he wants, and often it appears wicked people seem to come out ahead. His plan is to entice people to follow him by making them think God causes bad things to happen. Thus we have that insurance clause that things are acts of God. The explanation went on to say that Satan has been given opportunity to prove his point that his way of dealing with humankind and the earth is superior to God's way. I found some comments on a website called allaboutgod.com about the influence of Satan, and I quote, God controls the universe, including Satan. However, he permits Satan to assign demons to activities and people to the test. Demons tempt, accuse, and deceive. Demons dominate and captivate people who practice sin. Demons can inflict disease, ruining bodies and souls. That comes from Luke chapter 9, verse 42. Demons can possess a person who is not under God's protection. Saved lives from under the protection of their lives being saved. So demons cause them to say and commit evil things, according to Matthew chapter 8, verses 24-28. The goal of demons is to separate as many people from God as possible forevermore, taking them to eternal hell with them. Their war strategy is influencing the mind to reject the Lord Jesus and to live in sin. In God's churches, they attempt to draw people away from the truth. That's from 1 John chapter 4, verse 1. Does that make sense to you? That Satan's way is the best way? That's what he's trying to convince everybody. Jesus said in John chapter 10, verse 10, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they might have life and might have it abundantly. Satan is the thief. In John 3:16 we read, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that everyone who believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. How about the promises of Psalm chapter 34, verses 17-19, and I quote, the righteous cry out, and the Lord hears. He delivers them from all their troubles. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted. He saves the contrite in spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers them from them all. On the other hand, sometimes what appears to be something bad happening to us is not. Consider what Isaiah chapter 57 verse 1 says, and I quote, The righteous perish, and no one takes it to heart. The devout are taken away, and no one understands that the righteous are taken away to be spared from evil. Well, yes, evil seems to reign on this earth for now. In due time, God will bring Satan's reign to a close, and Satan and his followers will be banished from the earth and cast into hell. We could spend our life playing the blame game, asking whose fault is it? Why do bad things happen to good people? Having royal pity parties and focusing on fear, anxiety, loss, unmet expectation, and more. I chose not to. Just as a mighty oak tree becomes stronger by withstanding the wind and the rain and the snow and the sun, so too do we become strong as we go through the experiences of life, both the challenging experiences and the wonderful experiences. A few years ago, a friend of mine put on Facebook an entry from a relative of his whose 17-year-old son, named Micah, was undergoing treatment for cancer. I was particularly touched by what Micah's mother wrote, and I quote, "I've been enjoying the passage in Mark 4, where the disciples are fearful of the storm on the Sea of Galilee. In their fear they cried out to the Lord, and he calmed the sea." The verse that has been speaking to me in the first verse of chapter 5, and I quote, "They came to the other side." They came to the other side. And she went on to write, the Lord didn't just calm the storm in the middle of the sea and leave them there to figure things out on their own. They all came safely to the other side. On the other side of the sea, they saw even more of the Lord's miracles and demonstrations of his goodness and love. Right now I feel like we're still rowing to get to the shore, but the Lord's in the boat with us. He gives us the strength to keep on going, even when things seem to be closing in around us. Those are just a few simple thoughts I've been enjoying, and I hope this might encourage others that are going through rough water right now. Now, I've noticed my friend, who is still on Facebook, he still refers back to his cousin Micah and his mother. I hope this might encourage others that are going through rough waters right now. And I know a lot of people going through some really rough waters these days who are all in the boat with me. And they're all in the boat with Jesus. That is who I and so many of us serve. The one who is in the boat with me now, going through rough waters, right through to the other side. I invite you to get into the boat with Jesus, knowing that whether the waters are smooth or a little choppy or downright violent, he will take you through to the other side if you put your trust in him. One last point you need to know. God does not intend that we just go along for the ride in this boat of life. We're part of the crew. We're all a part of the crew. We have roles and responsibilities. Climb into the boat confidently with Jesus at the helm. Get into the boat because God is still on the throne. He doesn't just dump you into the boat. He gets into the boat with you and goes along for the ride. So, people, God is still on the throne. So I invite you to get into the boat.